Joining me in studio, the Democratic candidate for Lubbock County Judge, AustinCarrizales. You've probably seen his yellow signs around Lubbock. Austin, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, appreciate you coming in. I know we talked yesterday about you coming in studio, and I know there were some out there that said, I don't know, going on Chad's show, that's a little dicey, but hey, I got to give it to you. Thanks for coming in.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, tell folks a little bit about yourself. It was the AJ editorial board when they released their endorsements. They came down to this race, and they issued no endorsements at all. They said that you're young and you're up and coming. Tell folks a little bit about your story and why you decided to run for office.
Well, I mean, really, it's because I've centered my life around public service. That's what I do. I try to help people in my daily job as an attorney here at Fadul, Clough & Hardy. I'm a personal injury attorney, and I just try to help others. Not only that, but, I have my professional career as an attorney. I'm also a public administrator. I went to Tech's MPA program, have a master's in public administration. So I'm really centered, around budgeting and public service. I, worked for Henry Cuellar in D.C. for a little bit, so the only blue dog Democrat in Texas, fiscally conservative Democrat, and that's who I worked for. So that's really my background. I kind of have a passion for politics, but I also have a passion for helping people, and that's why I kind of decided to throw my hat in this race.
You're running as a Democrat. Tell people, because I've heard from some of my friends who lean towards the independent side, even some Republicans who said, well, they're giving you a look because, and I think you've said this on Facebook before, that I'm running as a Democrat, but I don't always agree with some of the things that come out of the Democratic Party. Is that true?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, if anybody's going to butt heads with them, it's going to be me. I think part of the fact is that, we as politicians shouldn't be afraid to look somebody in the eye and say, you know what, I don't agree with you. But for me, that tends to happen more than others. And part of that is because, I'm traditionally more conservative than they are. I think, a good friend of mine, Mr. Pete Laney, is basically, kind of a mentor to me. He's, represented Lubbock well for a long time in the state house, and, he was a fiscally conservative Democrat. There are a few of us out there, but man, they're hard to find. I can count them on one hand.
So basically, when it comes to the fiscal issues, that's where you separate yourself from the rest of the Democrats?
I would say, fiscal issues, when it comes to abortion, I've been pro-life. My grandfather's a Baptist minister. Kind of hard for me to separate myself from the way I was raised.
Sure.
So, the gun issue, somebody said, well, he just has a CHL for convenience. So I pulled mine out and said, no, if you notice, it's about to expire. I didn't barely get it. I've had it since I could.
Right.
So, that's kind of where I stand. I like to say, I'm a Democrat raised in West Texas, so that makes you conservative. I mean, if you go to D.C., it's kind of funny. People looked at me weird when I said, hey, I believe in the death penalty.
Right.
Whoa, big deal.
Yeah, probably shocked a few of them up there.
Yeah.
A few of the Democrats up there. Why did you decide to run for this office? What is it about? Because you're running against Tom Head, who is the incumbent and has been fairly popular, I would say, as far as elections go out here. Why decide to run against him?
Well, actually, at the time, I was looking to maybe doing a county commissioner's race. I contacted both parties, Mr. Tepper, Kenny Kettner. And I just said, hey, guys, I'm looking to get involved here locally. I'm from Lubbock, and I just said, hey, I want to see how I can help out and maybe do a race because I live over here off of, University by the Loop. So when that happened, I kind of started doing some soul searching to say, which side do I want to be on? And, man, that was the hardest decision I've ever made, really. I couldn't really pull myself because I think people that are, a little bit more extreme liberal, I don't get along with them very well at all, just like I don't get along with the people that are extreme right. I tend to hover more in the middle and I lean right. But after a few meetings.
Okay, I'm fascinated by this. And I had someone who just sent in a text. Why Democrat then?
Why Democrat?
Yeah.
Man, that's the hardest decision really to make. I think for me, it's, I can't just come into this race and not use my education. I think the one thing that sets me apart from my opponent is that I'm trained to do the job. I'm actually an attorney. I know the law. I know what it's like to be an administrator. Well, not only that, I know what it's like to look at statistics and break down numbers. If you look at David Nelson's previous race, he spent $78,000 running as a Republican. He was a moderate Republican. $78,000 in a primary. Well, he couldn't defeat Judge Head in a primary. This made sure that I made it to the final round, and hopefully we can go for the TKO.
So are you running as a Democrat out of convenience?
Well, I wouldn't say it's convenience. I would say more along the lines where if I had to pick a party, I had to run as a Democrat, because look at what we need. Here in Lubbock, we've traditionally had very, very low minority turnout. Quite frankly, it's really hard for you to get minority turnout as a Republican. Look at Isidro. Look at Frank. I mean, these are guys that have, tried to run as Republicans, and people look at them and just say, what are you doing? You guys used to be Democrats. I mean, having worked in Congress, for a guy that is conservative, I figured out, you know what? You can find the only congressman that stood with John Cornyn on the immigration bill. Do you know who that was? Henry Cuellar. That's who I worked for. They're the ones that offered the bill, and you know what? I can still maintain my core values, but still remember where I came from, and that brings the conservative into play.
Let's talk about decisions that Tom Head has made that you probably disagree with. That's why you're running. That's why you run against somebody, because you disagree with them on some of the issues. What are some of those key issues that if elected you would want to do better, you would change? Tell folks why they should vote for you.
The pay increase. I mean, that's number one. It was political convenience, as you like to term it, was Judge Head, when they said, all those in favor of the pay increase, everybody, aye. All those opposed, dead silence. And then right after it passed, he looked around and says, well, for the record, I want to make a statement. And I've traditionally been against pay increases, and I was like, man, this is really convenient of him to wait till he, got the raise to decide to be against it. He knew what was on the agenda 3.5 weeks before when he signed the agenda for the fiscal year budget for 2014-2015. Where was the rallying calls? I didn't hear him here on your radio station, Chad. Where was he? He was hiding in his office, getting ready to take a pay increase. That's what he was doing.
What would you have done different?
Easy. I mean, we have an inactive county judge right now. We have somebody that sits back and he watches everybody else do the work for him. So if it were me, I would have said, hey, you know what? We're going to have a press conference about this. Let's get all the radio stations, all the news outlets, get the AJ involved. Say, hey, guys, you know what? I know that we said that we were going to cut taxes, but what we actually did, we cut taxes by 0.04 of a cent or by 0.4 of a cent per $100 of valuation. What we didn't tell you is that we could have cut it by an entire cent and given the money back to the taxpayers. But what we did, we kept that other half for ourselves and put it in our own pockets. And that's exactly what happened. I would have raised that attention to everybody. I mean, make sure that everybody here know that these guys are calling themselves conservatives, but they're putting their own money, the taxpayers' money, in their pocket rather than giving it back to the people.
770-5790, toll free, 1-800-687-0790. If you have a question for Austin, you can give us a call. Other issues that concern you in this race?
Other issues that I would look at, to me, that one of the main things, I started my campaign on 3 main issues, and it kind of transformed to this pay increase. Originally, it was, accountability, transparency, and responsiveness. Those are the 3 issues. To me, the only way we can be accountable is if we have these commissioner court meetings, we need to move them to the evenings. Once every other week, why can't we pay for a few people to stay in the courthouse? So normal working people like, hey, me and you, we're working right now. Guess what time the meetings are taking place? Yeah. Monday at this time. We couldn't make it. And, I had to take time off of my job to go and be able to make the few meetings that I've been able to attend. All the people listening here, we're hardworking people in West Texas. We deserve a chance to have a say, especially in front of our elected officials. Move the meetings to 6 o'clock at night. And I can tell you what, it wouldn't have cost $32,000 for you to meet, for you to have people there every other weekend or every other week once a month.
Let me ask you, just on top of that, you've seen what's happened with the Lubbock City Council, and I was in favor of night meetings with Lubbock City Council. I think all meetings, public meetings, should be at night because, as you said, that's easier for people to attend. Do you have any concern as what happened with the Lubbock City Council? They held their meetings at 6. They went late. Typically, that doesn't happen as much with the Lubbock County Commissioners Court, but it could to where they're going late into the evening. Do you have any concern about that whatsoever?
Well, my concern would be towards the actual elected officials. If you're not willing to stay late, why are you running for office? You're putting your name on the ballot here. It's twice a month. I'm not asking you to stay late. Right now I work 7 a.m. to about 7 or 8 at night every single day. That's expected of me. And, that's just me as an attorney.
Right.
Why can't these guys do that twice a month? There's no reason. If they can't do that, they shouldn't be elected.
Can you hold on for one more segment?
Sure.
Okay, we'll take the break. When we come back, we'll continue to visit the Democratic candidate for Lubbock County Judge here in Lubbock County. We'll be right back. All right, back on the Chad Hasty Show. Austin Carrizales in studio with me. Close?
Carrizales?
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Good enough.
All right, good enough. Democratic candidate for Lubbock County Judge in studio. Let me ask you something about, and we'll get back to some of the campaign stuff here in just a second about things that you would like to change inside Lubbock County. But one of the things that the AJ brought up, youth and experience, which is probably something that you knew was coming.
Yeah, definitely.
How do you, two things, how do you get past that issue and tell people, hey, don't worry about youth, don't worry about somebody who hasn't been in the job before? And then also for those who are out there, again, we're in West Texas, heavy Republican area. You are running as a Democrat, but as you said, you disagree with the Democrats on a lot of issues. How do you get past those, the D next to your name and the youth?
Well, first of all, the youth, I do it the same way I do as an attorney with results. Some people initially might say, hey, this guy looks young. He doesn't have as much gray hair. I mean, I might be losing some hair, but I don't have as much gray hair as, some of the other attorneys. And I'm like, you know what? Just let me show you that I know what to do. You got to put your faith in me and trust me, and I guarantee you'll like the results when we're done. And sure enough, 6 months later, come down the line, they get a big check in their pocket. All of a sudden, they're singing praises, saying, wow, this guy knows exactly what he's doing. And that's exactly how I plan on handling the judge race. Right now, the only thing I can do is say, hey, I need you guys to put your faith in me. I'm going to fight for every dollar you give. I'm going to give your tax money back to you. And I'm going to go line by line on this budget, not with the auditor, but by myself, and look for actual tax cuts. And you know what? I need you to put your faith in me. If you can do that, I expect you, hopefully in about 4 years, to be singing me praises.
Going back to one of the things, and I watched one of the videos, I think it was when you announced, and one of the things you talked about was transparency on the county government level. What would you do to increase transparency?
To increase, one is, of course, moving the meetings. Two is to eliminate these executive sessions, altogether. Right now, we have a culture of you go in there, and if you've been in any meeting, they're like, all this is in favor, aye. There's no discussion. There's nothing going on. Their mind's made up before they go in. I don't think that's the way it should happen. I should think that, for example, this pay increase, when it happened, we had 19 individuals go up and talk to the county commissioners and the county judge, and they'd point at them and look them in the face and just start ripping them,
Right.
But the funny thing is that these guys, rather than, sitting there and taking their constituents, they're looking down because they're ashamed of what they're doing because their mind was already made up. And that's why I want to eliminate those meetings. Another thing is, you said, what are some things that I might want to change? The sheriff's department, man, that's a huge issue. And, there was 2 periods here where, when Judge Head went on the air and said, if Obama's reelected, the UN's going to invade, and we made national headlines and it embarrassed Lubbock. But the real issue there is that he was asking for a tax increase for 7 to 12 deputies. And, I don't have any problem with hiring new deputies, but before we go and hire 7 to 12 new ones, we need to take care of the guys we already have that are amongst the lowest paid in the state. Same thing with our DA's office. A starting DA makes $30-something thousand. That's a lawyer making $30-something thousand. In Midland County, I know because I was interviewed there, they start at 60. There's something wrong. How are we keeping our talent? Do you want these criminals to go on the street? What do you want? Or would you rather have a seasoned DA in office? I don't know about you. I favor for our DAs to have a little bit more experience.
Do you think right now there needs to be a tax increase in order to get that pay up?
No, I think the tax should remain the same, and our county commissioners and county judge should give back the money that they just took from the taxpayers. If the taxes remain the same and they say, hey, you know what, we didn't deserve a 42% pay increase. Maybe we deserved a 3% pay increase. Let's leave the taxes the same, and let's put that money in the hands of the people who deserve it.
Well, let's say that's going to, because let's be honest, that's not going to happen. The county commissioners, they're not going to give back their pay. We know that. Going into, let's say you're elected, going into the next budget cycle, if you want to get that pay up, how do you do it without raising taxes?
That's whenever we have to go line by line. I was speaking with Mr. Wade on the other radio station. They said that, they've had guys ask, Judge Head, who does the budget? And he's like, well, that's mainly something that Bill McKay does. And then, I personally went to Bill McKay and I was like, let's talk about this budget. And he's like, well, we have a county auditor for that. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? You guys are making the decisions. You should know what's in there. You should know exactly what's in there. Yeah, you may look at it when it's said and done, but if you go line by line and actually take the time to do budgets, then you're going to know where you can make those cuts. I don't think we should have people voting on it that are doing this pass the buck deal. I think we should be knowledgeable about that, and that's why people should vote for me.
When you look at the county jail, when you look at the sheriff's department, are there any changes that you would make there? Anything that you would want to deal with?
I mean, the county jail, our biggest issue is, the staffing issue. We initially put so much money into the jail thinking that we would have all these federal prisoners. And right whenever we finished the jail, they changed their standards, and so we're not housing as many federal prisoners. However, you have a staffing issue because of the sheer size of the jail. We are required by state law to maintain a certain amount of deputies. Well, that's fine, but you know what? If we're going to do that, we need to go ahead and say, well, we made a mistake here. That's something we need to own up to it. Who was in office when we voted for it? And guess what? These guys need to come out. There's no going back on the jail now. We can't cut it in half and say we're only going to use half the utilities, half the staff, everything else. It's just something that we have to live with moving forward. Luckily, our county's increasing in population, so even if we don't raise taxes, we'll get a little bit of extra money.
Yeah. Let's go to the phones. Have a question for Austin. Joe, you're on KFYO.
Austin, hey, you just made a comment about the sheriff's office and the district attorney.
Yes, sir.
The county, they all gave themselves a hefty raise there. I know a deputy sheriff who just received a pay raise. He got 50 cents an hour.
I know.
That's nowhere near what these county officials are getting.
And I agree.
And as far as the DA's office, the DA's a joke. He needs to be replaced anyway.
Well, I'm not just referring to the DA's office. We have a bunch of assistant DAs. There are other attorneys that work there. And these are the guys that we need to be a little bit more seasoned and not wet behind the ears when they're actually prosecuting people for felonies. They should have more than a year's experience for felonies. As far as the sheriff's department, yeah, I agree with you completely. Why are we going to have people that have been in the sheriff's department? I have a friend of mine that's been there, for 10, 20 years going on. He's been there, whenever I was in high school. His dad had already been there over 10 years. And this guy hasn't got a pay increase, of more than 50 cents in a number of years.
Exactly.
It's wrong. And, we have right now people, and including a county judge, that are not very vocal about that. But, boy, do they like taking these 42% pay increases.
Well, not only is it wrong, but it's disgraceful.
It is. I agree.
Joe, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
If I guess on the time that we have left, and we have, about a minute left or so, go ahead, talk to the listeners out there. Early voting is going on right now. Tell them why they should vote for you.
Well, it's really simple. You need to vote for Austin Michael Carrizales, Democratic candidate for Lubbock County Judge. I want you to go and visit my Facebook page and look at everything that I've posted, facebook.com/newcountyjudge. And the reason is simple. No more making Lubbock look bad. From now on, when we go anywhere and we say we're from Lubbock, Texas, they're not going to say, hey, we have that crazy county judge over there. They're going to say, you know what, you guys made some changes. You guys are leading the pack in Texas, and that's why you should vote for Austin.
Austin, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in.